Hi, kindergarten. Since we're working on measurement for math, I want to share with you one of my favorite measurement stories called How Big is a Foot? Once upon a time, there lived a king and his wife, the queen, and they were a happy couple for they had everything they wanted in the world. However, when the queen's birthday came up, the king had a problem. What could he give to someone who already had everything? Do you have any ideas? The king thought and he thought and he thought and he thought, and then he had an idea. He would give the queen a bed. A bed? We probably all have one of those. Let's see. The queen did not have a bed because at that time, beds had not been invented. So even someone who had everything didn't have a bed. The king called his prime minister and he asked him to please make a bed. And the prime minister called the chief carpenter and he asked him to have a bed made. And the chief carpenter called the apprentice and told him to make a bed. How big is a bed? Asked the apprentice, because remember, at that time, nobody had ever seen a bed. How big is a bed? The carpenter asked the prime minister. Oh, that's a good question, said the prime minister, and he asked the king, how big is a bed? The king thought, and he thought, and he thought, until he had an idea. Well, the bed must be big enough to fit the queen. And so the king called the queen and he told her to put on her new pajamas and told her to go lay down on the floor. What do you think he's going to do? Measure her, probably. The king took off his shoes and with his big feet, he walked carefully around the queen. And he counted that the bed must be 3 feet wide, 1, 2, 3, and 6 feet long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it would be big enough to fit the queen, including the crown, which the queens sometimes like to wear to sleep in. That can't be too comfortable. And the king said thank you to the queen, and he told the prime minister, who told the chief carpenter, who told the apprentice the bed must be 3 feet wide and 6 feet long. In order to fit the queen, including the crown, which she sometimes liked to wear to sleep in. And the apprentice said thank you, and he took off his shoes, and with his little feet, he measured 3 feet wide and 6 feet long. Let's go back and look at the one the king measured. There's the one the king measured with his feet, and there's the one the apprentice measured with his feet. What's different about those two? Well, when the king saw the bed, he thought it was beautiful, and he couldn't wait until the queen's birthday. Does anyone notice a problem with this bed? Instead, he called the queen and told her to put on her new pajamas. And then he brought out the bed and he told the queen to try it. But the bed was too small for the queen. And the king was so angry that he immediately called the prime minister, who called the chief carpenter, who called the jailer, and they put the apprentice in jail. The apprentice was not happy. Now, why was the bed too small for the queen? He thought and he thought and he thought until suddenly he had an idea. A bed that was 3 king's feet wide and 6 king's feet long would be bigger than a bed that was 3 apprentice feet wide and 6 apprentice feet long. I can make a bed to fit the queen if I know the size of the king's foot, he cried. And he explained this to the jailer, who explained it to the chief carpenter, who explained it to the prime minister, who explained it to the king, who was much too busy to go to the jail. So instead, the king took off one shoe and he called a famous sculptor. And the sculptor made an exact marble copy of the king's foot and they sent that to the jail. And the apprentice took that marble copy of the king's foot, and with it he measured 3 feet wide and 6 feet long, and he built a bed to fit the queen. And the bed was ready just in time for the queen's birthday. And the king called the queen and told her to put on new pajamas. And then he brought out the new bed and he told the queen to try it. So let's make a prediction. Thumbs up if you think this bed is going to be the right size. Thumbs down if you think, no. Same. The queen got into the bed and the bed fit the queen perfectly. Those of you with thumbs up predicted right, including the crown, which, she sometimes liked to wear to sleep in. It was, without a doubt, the nicest gift that the queen had ever received. And the king was very happy, and he immediately called the apprentice from jail, and he made him a royal prince, and he ordered a big parade, and all the people came out to cheer for the little apprentice prince. And forever after, anyone who wanted to measure anything used a copy of the king's foot. And when someone said, my bed is 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, everyone knew exactly how big it was. The end.